I was in there a little over 3 months, and a lawyer come up to see me, and I had the escape case and other serious legal issues. And the visiting room area with the attorney was an area probably a little bit bigger than this. And there was a desk in the middle, and one wall was all plate glass, right? And the guard was outside the plate glass window and stuff, and the lawyer was behind the desk. And when she reached over to pick up a paper, when she came back, I lost the content of the conversation. When the guard moved in the corridor, I looked. When I came back, I lost the content of the conversation. I thought I was losing my mind. I had
Well,
never,
you were.
I had never
You were.
Exactly right.
I had never experienced anything like that in my life. I had no experiential thing to deal with it. When I wanted to get out of there, when I got back to the cell, I had the list. I didn't do anything that was on this list.
Mm-hmm.
And once I was back in the cell, that sensation went away, and I said, like, what the hell just happened to me?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I studied sociology, psychology, whatnot. I had the degree in a bachelor's degree, and I finally figured it out. Right? The cell door has a window 27 inches long, 3 inches wide, and from me to you is the distance of the corridor to the wall.
Yep.
When you come to my cell, this is all I see.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see body language.
No.
You don't realize it, but verbal skills and body languages are seamless.
That's right.
But they're two separate things. If you separate them, it's chaos in the mind.
Oh, yeah.
I can talk to guys on the tier, and through the inflection in their voices, I can judge if they're lying to me, telling me a bullshit story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you do thinking in a different way. I wrote a piece on it, and the American Friends Service Committee's Criminal Justice Program put it in 3 different magazines. A Spare Change was one of them. And they got the stuff back to the guy. There's 124 beds in the DDU in 3 corridors. When I went out into the yard, a black prisoner was next to me, and he was almost in tears. And I think he may have had some tears in his eyes. He said, Bobby, I read the article. He said, that's exactly what happened to me. The visiting room are 2 glass cages, and you got the plexiglass between you, and you talk on the phone, and you got that steel chair to sit on, and his kids were there. And he's talking to the wife, and the kids are bouncing around, and he looks at the kid, looks back to the wife.
And lost.
Lost the conversation,
Yep.
right? And he says, I thought I was losing my fucking mind. All right, he said, this is exactly what happened to me. And after I figured that out, you notice that in the yard, there's a cage. You know, there's like dog kennels. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, when you talked in the dog kennel, you talked with your hands down. And I told guys, listen, you all got to become Italian. You got to talk with your hands. You got
to reorient your mind.
Right, to keep that stuff together.
That's right.
I mean, it is so damaging, segregation units. Mm-hmm. They should not exist. But the scary thing is, people are taken in directly from these supermaxes and dropped into the street.
Dropped into the street.
I'm well aware of Supermax prison facilities because one of the things that I studied was the federal Supermax at Marion, Illinois.
Been there twice.
And okay, all right. Well, the federal Supermax at Marion, and this is where John Gotti was sent.
Yeah.
And also some of the issues, I don't know what issues you had in the Supermaxes you were at, was that they had the lights on 23 hours a day. And that would also cause serious psychological realignment because you don't get any sense of day or night. Light being on all the time interrupts your sleep patterns, and sleep deprivation is a primary tool in torture, for God's sakes. You know, I mean, because if you don't sleep after a certain period of time, if you don't get the appropriate amount of REM sleep, your mind doesn't start to function properly, and then the other avenues of isolation start to hamper that. And on some of the videos that I would watch of people who had been in the federal Supermax for extended periods of time, they started to completely lose their minds, and they were writing on the walls in feces and, you know, completely, someone who went in who was problemed but sane came out years later completely insane.
Listen,
And to drop someone like that directly onto a street is to
criminal.
throw a live
It's
hand
criminal.
grenade into the middle of a
it's
street.
criminal.
It is
You know?
criminal. And
I've been out over 7 years. I do not sleep solidly through the night. I wake up every 45 minutes to an hour. Inside the DDU, the door leading onto the tier is a big steel door. It's got to be about 450, 500 pounds. It's got that tempered glass top and bottom, but it's thick steel. And there's an electrical opening in it. It says, kind of noise, bam, when they push it, open it up. And they literally goose-step 2 guards down the corridor with combat boots on. And they have a running conversation with each other. When they get to the end of the tier, there's another door. Same thing. Except the end door is connected to the back wall of the end cell. That guy is being tortured every time they make a round. Then they go down metal stairs. They go in below this way, under the tier this way, come out around, go down this tier, back to this door, back up to the stairs, through this door, down this tier, and they go to the next block. There is no way you don't wake up. Guys talk about the ancestry of the gods, their mothers, their grandmothers, and I mean, it's a running, you have to wake up. And you get used to opening your eyes, hearing the stuff. Some of it you laugh at, because some of it it's actually funny, right? And you fall back to sleep. To this day, I still do that. I have no control of that.
Well, it's a, for lack of a better phraseology, it's a traumatic experience. And traumatic experiences, particularly prolonged traumatic experiences, have permanent lasting effects on people's psychology. And you know, it all stems back to this idea that, well, you know, these are bad people and who cares about them.
And, yeah, exactly.
And, but
Well,
if
I'll tell you,
you can't,
I'll
if
tell
you
you the bad
can't-
part of it now is they've changed the uniform of the guards. Initially, they had they used to have khaki uniforms, right? And then they went to this police-like uniform, blue with dark blue, and they looked like cops in the street, right? Guys are coming out of the prison after being abused by them, attacking cops. They identify them as guards.
But look, same thing would happen in
Friends
war
of
zones.
ours that left
Yeah.
DDU to the street were committing heinous, crazy crimes on the street. And when they come back, you say, like, Russ, what the fuck what went wrong? I said, man, I just lost it. There was one guy, Lee. This kid was taken out of DDU. He did, I want to say 3 years in DDU. They took him to a shelter, shackled and chained, brought him into the middle of the shelter, took the shackles and chains off, and just walked away, and just left him standing there, all right? No money, prison gobs, all right? It took 2 or 3 weeks for them to get his money to him. I mean, you know he's leaving, you don't give him a check, all right? He gets the money, he buys a ticket, bus ticket to Maine, and a jacket. 3 weeks later, he's in jail.
I'm surprised.
Wonder how that happened.
I'm surprised it took 3 weeks. I was about to say 24, 48 hours.
It's very frightening stuff, you know.
It's scary.
They did the article. Dr. Gawande from Harvard. In fact, Bobby was in the
Hellhole article, yeah.
article and was in the New Yorker in March of 2009. Study of how these places are torture, and they had Terry White, John McCain.
Yeah, people
Bobby.
who had POW or hostage experiences.
Yeah, Terry Anderson, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
That's
Terry
right.
Anderson.
They had Terry Anderson, and Bobby,
McCain
you,
and me.
and John McCain, and yeah.
He's a doctor in,
He's Harvard. He's at Harvard.
he's a big-time doctor.
Oh, yeah, he's huge. And, well, he did, I can't think of the name of his book that the
You give
president
me your
named.
email address, I'll send you a copy of it.
But
Sure,
It's
sure,
an
sure.
awesome
But it's
article.
all of these things. Well, number one, they need to be closed. But the thing is, these are folks that are coming back, dropped in, You know, if a mayor's lap, whether hopefully you're going to be mayor or whatever, but
And you have no idea that you got a human being that's been brutalized, and he's coming back into your community as a mad dog.
Right.
And this is what you know, individuals like yourselves know this. You've lived it. What we have to communicate in the next several months in the course of my campaign, what I have to communicate, is that you have to try to talk to that person who has no clue, who has the preconceptions of, if you're a criminal, just beat him down even more. That this is the reality of what's really going on in prisons. This is the reality of the people that are coming back to our community, whether you like it or not. And your options are either go back to the 1700s British model of if you commit a felony, we just hang you within 2 days, or you make permanent life sentences for anyone who's in prison over 5 years or commits a serious, you know,
And you can't afford it.
And we can't do that, and it's inhuman to do that, and it's unjust to do that, and it's wrong to do either of those things.
And if that doesn't work for you, you can't afford it.
So these individuals are coming back to society, and you have to look at this. If you can't break through to somebody on a spiritual level or on a moral level that you should have concern for other human beings, then at the very least, we need to make the argument that if we don't do something about how we re-enter people into society, you and your children and your business and your local economy and are all at risk. Your home is at risk, your kids are at risk, your neighbors at risk, your life's at risk.
Exactly.
Because we can't do the littlest bit. I mean, think about the story you just told. Guy comes in with shackles, they bring him to a shelf, they unshackle him and leave him there. And he doesn't get even his base money to be let up for two. He's got no clothes, got no nothing. What do you think's going to happen? And how much does it cost to give that guy some furloughs? How much does it cost to give that guy some re-education training? How much does it cost to give that guy a set of clothes? How much does it cost to put a couple bucks in his pocket?
Goodwill
versus what is it going to cost
exactly.
when your, you know, grandma gets raped from a sexual predator, when your kid gets murdered, when you get robbed, when your car gets stolen?
Right.
I mean, how much does that cost?
It's a shame.
And how much is it going to cost when the person does anything wrong and gets sent back to prison for 10 more years? We need to think about this. If we can't convince people that this is something we need to pay attention to on a moral level, we should at least appeal to people's self-interest, and we should at least appeal to dollars and cents. What is cheaper? A little bit spent on reentry and rehabilitation, or a whole lot spent when something horrible happens to you and your family, or to re-imprison these people for extended periods of time? We cannot afford it. Just look at the state of California. The state of California is going bankrupt, and they considered letting out, what was it, 20% of their prison
20%?
population, just because
they couldn't
afford to keep them in prison.
Can't afford it.
You know, we in the state of Connecticut have a multi-billion-dollar deficit.
Yeah.
You know, the governor is looking for all different ways to try to cut this. I know Father Russ and I were at his budget hearing, watching that.
Hearing,
you know,
right.
what are you going to do?
I'm glad to see the guys in California 20% get out, but that was really the wrong thing to do.
In that way,
but that's the reaction that people are getting.
Citizen.
No, of course
not. No, and I'm not saying it was right. What I'm saying is that this is what states are starting to do because we can't afford it. So if you can't afford it, think about spending the much smaller sum to avoid the problem in the first place and re-enter people into society. But, you know, a lot of this stuff that we're talking about, we got to be clear for the viewers, you know, is not stuff that a mayor can do on his own or her own. This is a broader problem. But I think that the mayor in New London has to have also a broader view of your job. You know, your job comes in multiple forms. Part of your job is what it says in the city charter. You do this with the budget, you do this with this program, you sign this ordinance. And there's a lot within that zone of the mayor's job that can be done to address these kinds of concerns. But then there's the job of generic community leader, where you are out there bringing attention to and mobilizing community-based groups and organizations to get involved. But then there's a third role. And the third role is looking outside our borders